Hello again. In part 1 we got this Toshiba Betamax video recorder playing fairly well, but we still have a host of mechanical problems to solve. In particular, it's not taking the tape back into the cassette properly when you press eject, which is damaging tape, so that's serious. But we need to sort out fast forward, rewind, it's having problems locking out the keys sometimes. We want to get the whole machine into full working order. So let's get stuck in. Okay, since we last spoke, I left this machine playing tapes okay, but we still have a problem that it's not unlacing or rewinding the tape back into the cassette during unlace. And there are also some other oddball issues, like when I hit eject, it does eject, but the motors keep on running after eject until I press stop. The stop button is jamming as well. So there's some things going on there, and I've had a thought. You see, there's a pulley which is designed to take drive from the loading ring and drive one of the spools, I still don't know which, during unlace. And I don't think that's worn out. I don't think that's the reason it's not retracting the tape during unlace. I think it's not being moved into position. And I suspect the same cause applies to both that and the other issues I'm having. I think part of the mechanism is still gummed up, because I've had a few of the levers that I've had to squirt a bit of silicone grease onto to get them to operate properly. So I'm going to eject this tape, and I'm going to have a look and see if I can find anything jamming on the mechanism that's causing the unlace to not retract the tape. One thing I can do is get it into that mode where it should be retracting the tape during unlace and pull the power on it and have a look at what's not engaged that should be. Okay, first thing I need to do then is get the tape out. At the moment it's left in play mode, so it's playing. So if I hit stop, it'll simply stop, but the stop button sticks down, so there's part of my problem. Now I press eject and it will, I believe, eject, but it'll leave tape outside, and you'll also see the eject button stays down, which it shouldn't, and the eject motor, or a motor, continues to spin, which it shouldn't. Let's just show that. Okay, that's a little bit sticky. That needs a bit of help. Right, and that's still running, which it shouldn't be. And as you see, it's spool tape everywhere. I can easily get that back into the cassette later. So this here, I'm not sure if you can see that. Let me move you for a moment. This here is, no, that one there is a pulley, an idler wheel rather, which should connect to the loading ring and, look, drive this spool to rewind the tape back into the cassette. And it's not doing so during unlace, which I suspect is not due to worn pulley. I suspect it's not being moved properly. It looks like it slides forwards and backwards there. So let's get back into that mode. Have to be a bit careful when you tell it there's a tape in there and there isn't. You have to activate two things. These two. There we go. Nicely laced up. And now if I press eject, the trouble is you can't see what's going on because the cassette carriage is in the way. If I press eject and then quickly pull the power off, right, just switched it off there. Now we should be able to see why that pulley is not engaging with the loading ring. Is it just due to wear on the pulley, or is it because it's not being pushed into the right place? Let's have a closer look. Well, I don't know if you can see that, but there's no way in the world that if that had a few microns of extra rubber on it, it would engage with there. No, it's not being engaged properly. So there's a problem here. This is not being moved to the correct position for unlace. I'm not sure if it should go forwards or backwards. I don't know where it should move, but I'm sure it should move. So I would say that we're now in the fault condition, and I suspect I'm not going to gain anything by looking at the top. I'm going to have to go to the underside of the deck. So let's turn it over and have a look. Still bits of old drive belt keep turning up. It's everywhere. Right, let's zoom you in, because I'm sure the video recorder is much more interested than I am. Which of these levers should be responsible for getting that machine, getting the unlace to work? What's sticking here? I could get heavy-handed with my aerosol silicone grease, but I need to be careful I don't get it onto any of the friction surfaces or the drive belts. But I think I can afford to be a little heavy-handed with it. Yes, let's risk it. Okay. The machine is powered down. This isn't the ideal applicator for what I want. I'd much rather I'd had a straw on this can for this work. I can direct it more accurately then. But let's have a look. I may regret that, but I think I've been reasonably careful with it. Let's exercise the deck a few times and see if anything changes. Rewind was slow, which implies a lack of rewind torque, and yet there seems to be enough. This idler here is rotating well. This pulley I was talking about, or the idler, transfers drive from this pulley, which is working, through to the rewind. So that's used for rewind, that one. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. I'm still having a problem, I think, that the stop button's sticking down. I'm not sure it's made any difference, but... Right, so if this fast forward is okay, well, maybe that's lacking drive too. I suspect this idler here, this one here, is a little worn. Right, so I can do something with that. There may be something I can do a workaround on that. Right, let's try eject. Still no rewind. Oops. And still not stopping. I think what's supposed to happen when this pops up, you know, is it's supposed to operate the stop. Look, stop isn't jamming now. It only sticks in certain conditions. Look at that. I'm going to squirt a little bit more grease in somewhere else. Okay, cycle it a few more times. Interesting, it was in stop, and when I eject it, the motor runs. That shouldn't happen. I think what should happen is this should pop up. It's a lovely quiet lace up, unlike Sanyo. You may have seen my Sanyo video a while ago, and the Sanyo machine makes a dreadful noise during lace up. Still struggling to get enough torque to get the rewind started, the unlace started. I would say my greasing up has made things no better or no worse at the moment. It's odd how, you see, I'm just trying to find the clue that gives away which part of the mechanism is stuck. Look, stop is not jamming now, but at any other time, stop is sticking down. There's a clue, isn't it? There's a clue about something being wrong. If I can just find out why that's sticking. Because something's in the wrong place there now. Let's power the machine down, be careful. I can see a plastic gear, although you'll never see it from your angle, but there's a plastic gear deep in here. Plastic not gear, actually. It's a lever, which I know is the thing that's catching on the stop button, but clearly it's not in that position when it's fully ejected. So let's just do eject. I'm being hyper careful with this board because I don't want that to touch anything. I really can't afford to blow that board up. Right, and now stop button is not jamming on that lever, so what's the difference? Trouble is you can't get to anything here. That's what's jamming the button down. It's this bar here. That's not in the correct position. Ah. That's the bar that I think is supposed to release the keys. Yes. And what's happening is that's sticking out for some reason, which is one of the reasons that's just not working properly, that one. So sometimes it's sticking out, or sometimes being pulled back in when it shouldn't be, which is what's jamming this button, right? Whatever's supposed to activate this bar, there's something wrong there. Can I work out what? Nothing there feels goopy and stuck. Something must be. That stop release bar is on the other side of this. Right, so I can see when that's not in the correct place now, we'll have a pretty good idea what the problem is. So at times when when the stop button's jamming down, what must be happening is this bar is being pushed back like that, and it shouldn't be. So the problem is here with this bar here. There's a solenoid here. Has that got anything to do with it? That solenoid is the stop mechanism, I think. So if we have a button down, let me push a button down now. If I engage a button No, it won't let me until it's laced. But this will... Ah. What's going on here then? We're in that stuck position. This bar is being pushed back by the cassette carriage. Is that maybe not quite in the right place, this actuator? There it is, look. That's what's causing the button to stick down. I'm going to have a look at the position of this actuator on the scrap machine. This is all wrong. This is all wrong. That should be on the other side of the stop. It's way out too far there. Aha. So I need to find a way to get it the other side. Alright. Might be easy, actually. I think I may have just fixed something. Right, let's try it. Right, the PCB, main PCB is back in place roughly. I'll just roughly put this front panel on as well. Just try to prevent everything from falling to pieces when I'm working on it. Fast forward, stop. That works properly now. Rewind. Bit slow because we think we have a bit of a problem with the wear on the idler. Oh, it's lovely the way that now works properly. Let's see what eject does. That's all working. We only still have the problem of no rewind unlaced torque. We know what it should be doing. It should be driving the supply spool in reverse during unlace, and that's not working, but that is now just about the only thing that's not working. Oh, we're really making progress. Of course, this is not doing the tape any good. Now, one thing I know may not be the entire cause here, but we know that this idler wheel here, that's a little bit worn. So one trick I might do, depending how thick the idler tyre is, I'll either try to replace it or invert it so that it's inside out, and that can give it some more bite. Let's give that a whirl. Power the machine down first. Now, am I going to try and get it off in situ, or am I going to take the idler off? Let's see if we can do it in situ first. I don't have to take this cassette carriage off again because I got to such a pickle fitting it back on last time. Really don't want to go there. So what I'm doing is carefully prying off the idler tyre. Okay, here's the idler tyre. So a little bit of wear on that. Let's see if by some miracle I have a spare, but if not, maybe I can refit it that way round. Actually, it really does look quite good, that. I may not even try to replace it. I may just see if I can refit it like that. That's going on quite well. Make sure it's all nice and smooth on the way around. And if I'm lucky, one thing that will immediately be better is the rewind. Let's give that a whirl. Unlikely to fix the unlace take up, I think. I think that's got an actual fault somewhere, but at least we'll be a bit further along if we get good rewind. Start with fast forward. That's good. Rewind, here goes. I wouldn't complain about that. Oh, and then it ran out of steam. Why is it cutting out? There's a bit of tape there it doesn't like, I think. Alright, let's ignore that problem for a moment, it may not be real. Okay, I'm sure there'll be no take-up during unlace still, but at least that drive is as good as it's going to be from that idler. Here's go for eject. Oh no, that's it. So it's unlacing okay, but no take-up. So really this is becoming a serious thing we need to fix, and it could well be this idler here. Well, we need to investigate where that rewind, I don't know where it comes from, where the unlace tape drive should come from. And it's rather hard to see because I keep having to put this up. Can I leave this up and kid the machine into thinking it's got tape in? Yes. I can do this with Sanyo machines. Now when I hit eject, I should see if there's any attempt at taking up this spool here. No, there isn't. And why not? Where should that drive come from? Where could it possibly come from? Well, this spool is not being driven. I don't know. And I'm beginning to think, oh dear, my only hope is to see if I can look at the other deck and see if I can work out where that should come from. But there's no belts in the other machine, so it's going to be a bit hard, isn't it? I can see that the spool is free to spin, the brakes are coming off. It's at this moment here, that moment there, where it should be driving this spool. At least I think that spool. Can't be sure it's not supposed to be driving this one. I don't know which spool is supposed to turn during unlace. Well, this is what I need to work out. During the eject operation, where's the real drive supposed to come from? It's not allowing me to select fast forward, rewind, or oh, it is allowing rewind. Ah, it is. Yes, that has belts on it. That's all as it should be. Do you know what's bothering me still? That there's a slot, a groove in the bottom of this pulley here that doesn't have a belt on it, and that's still nagging me, that. So here in this eject position we should have drive to one or the other spools, and we don't know which, and we don't know why it's not getting there. Oh. If I do it by hand, it is there. There is drive. As long as the head's spinning, there is. So that's now in a position that it should be unlacing the tape. And look, there's unlaced drive. Provided the head's spinning. So it might appear that the problem is caused by the drum not spinning during unlace. Ah. Feels more electrical than mechanical. So during unlace, the loading motor runs. We know that because it unlaces. But it appears that the drum motor is not rotating. Right? Great care, because the main board is flopping about in the breeze down here. Power it up and watch it in unlace. Yes, no drum rotation. That's why we're not getting any unlace torque. Right. We've learned something. Don't know how to fix it, but we've learned something. Well, I have this idea. When you press eject and it successfully operates unlace, it should be working the head drum motor in order to also operate this reel drive. So I'm going to have a look at the switch that's on the eject button and see where that goes and see if I can work out why I'm not getting drive to the drum motor during the unlace operation. I could really use a schematic. I think I'm getting to the point that that might be a bit non-optional. But let's see if I can work it out just by looking at the wiring. Now I know this switch must be working or it wouldn't do unlace. We can prove the point though. I'm getting continuously hit by the circuit board, so I'm going to have to mount it back in its place, I think. I'm in the wrong place, that's better. There we go. Right, so the green wire is the eject signal. Where does that go? That board I've just put back, I'm going to have to open it again. Oops, and it fell off again. So this bundle of wires here, this panel is labelled speed control logic, so I think that's all to do with this slow-mo and what have you. Oh, the preset for setting the still frame on here, if there is one, might be on that board. I'll look for that later. The wiring disappears into a loom. It seems to travel along here and could go almost anywhere. I'm fairly sure it won't go to this board here, which we know is a signals board. There's a panel at the back, but I don't know what's going on where. It's very hard to trace without the schematics. Let's have a look at the boards on the top side and see if we can make any sense of it there. There's a big board along the back, and I'm beginning to think I'm going to have to take a look at it, and the only way to get it at it is to take this back panel off. Yes, this is the right board. This must be in servo. This board is responsible for driving the motors. It looks like it's got wired on parts. Oh dear, come on. That makes it hard to swap it out. A little bit nightmarish to change. I don't mind the fact there's lots of connectors on it, but I do mind the fact that there's soldered wires. So my thought is that the logic must be wrong, because the head drum motor is spinning when the head drum motor should be spinning, and the unlace is unlacing when the unlace should happen, but the drum is not spinning during unlace, and I believe it should be. So I kind of blame this board, but changing it's going to be nightmarish. So I may have to do some proper fault finding with a schematic, which I don't have still. A little bit grubby. Shall we do something really grasping at straws? Let's reseat all the connectors on this board. Okay. Making sure this servo board's not touching anything. Sorry, logic board. Let's just demonstrate the fault again. So eject. Play. Head drum spins fine. Stop. Rewind. Oh well. I think we have a bad bit of tape that's not rewinding. Eject. I have a horrible feeling we'll need the schematics, or I swap that board over from the other one, but there's soldering involved, which I can do of course, but I'd rather not. So have a think about it, decide what to do. Closer inspection shows that all these wires here that are soldered onto the board all go off to here. So you know what this is, don't you? That's a bodge board. So there's no reason I couldn't swap out the whole of this board and its bodge board all in one go, provided the same arrangement exists on the other machine. I think I might do that. Then I've eliminated the whole of this board. Bit non-trivial, but we can do it. Well, I found to my horror that the bodge board was too hard to remove, so I've had to desolder those 4 wires to the bodge board, and I've removed all the wires here and taken out my offending board. Well, you know, suspect, should we say. So here's the donor machine, and I'm going to swap over the panel. So I've got to take those 4 wires off again. And this time, you missed that bit, you'll hopefully avoid seeing me set far to my thumb, which is what I did last time, which was slightly annoying. So I've taken notes that the orange wire's down there. Green wire in the middle of IC501. Some trouble desoldering that for some reason. There we go. The white wire is on TP501. And a red wire on TP516, I think it is. Okay, so this is hopefully now our good board, if we're really lucky. All of this except the soldered wires have to go to the top of the board. Okay, that's rewired their bodge board. I will fit this panel back onto this machine, but later after I've tested it, just in case I end up putting it back again. So let's for the moment clear this out of the way. Right, I'm going to take another just double check, make sure I haven't missed any of these connectors out. One of them will push back a little better in, so that's worth doing. So what odds are you going to give me that that's fixed it? You know what odds I'm going to give myself? I would say, fit the screw in the wrong place, I would say barely 50%. But I was lucky with the signals board. If it doesn't fix it, I'm definitely going to have to look at getting a service manual, I think, because I'm running out of ideas. Well, here's our moment of truth. Power it up. Eject. I already don't think it's working because when it's in eject mode, shouldn't the head drum be spinning? So I don't think so. Play. Stop. Fast forward. Rewind. Eject. Here goes. No. That's sticking, but that's beside the point. No. Okay, let's go away and have a think about it again. Well, in the interest of not causing unnecessary problems, I've actually refitted the original logic board just to confirm everything still works. Still sticking, still not rewinding. Why's that happening? Unlace isn't happening, but you can hear it's trying to. Why is that stuck? Is that play? Play's not working now. Oh, what's wrong now? Why am I not getting unlaced now? Something's stuck. I'm not even trying to unlace. Don't see any connectors off, do you? Yes, look, there we go. That one there. be the problem. Eject. Yeah. So we're back to where we were before I missed a connector off. Okay, quick recap. Where are we? The machine's fully working except two things. One, during unlace, the loading ring isn't always retracting properly. That's a minor mechanical issue, and I can fix that, I'm sure. More seriously though, during unlace, it's not rewinding the tape back into the spool, into the cassette. And from what I can tell, the reason is that during unlace and eject, the head drum is not spinning, because if I manually spin the head drum in one direction, I forget which, the take-up spool rotates, which implies that that's correct. That's the way it should do the unlace. But I still haven't proven that that is the mechanism for unlacing the tape. So, how do I prove this? Well, I have the spare machine, but that has no drive belts, more or less no drive belts. But I could manually get into the laced condition, press eject, and confirm that, as well as the capstan motor, which does the unlace on the loading ring, that the head drum spins, because there's no belts associated with the head drum. However, the head drum seized on the spare machine, so the first thing I need to do is try to get that unseized, and then see if I can just do that to test whether my theory is correct, that the head drum should be spinning during unlace in order to take up the tape slack. And then I can have to try and debug why it's not working on this machine. So, let's refit the lower panel to the other machine, because you remember that's got a video defect on it, and see if I can prove this out. Right, here's the scrap machine with the video panel connected up. Unfortunately, little metal clips that are supposed to hold it onto this chassis have had so much wear now they've fallen off. So this board is now floating around, but so long as it doesn't touch anything, it should be alright. The lace-up, of course, is driven by a loading motor, not by the capstan, as I said earlier. And I have manually laced the machine up. I've put it into play mode. So if I were to power it up now, it should attempt to play, which I think would try to spin the head. There's a little bit by hand, and it's kind of moved up. So that motor should spin. That's the capstan. That should spin. No, it won't, because the belt's missing off here, but this should spin, which is the capstan drive, but that won't actually rotate. It's going to shut down fairly quickly because it won't see any real drive, but we should have just enough that the machine will make some attempt at playing, if there isn't something more serious wrong, like power supply problems. So that's already set up, that's in the on position. Let's just run it for a fleeting second to see what motors spin, if anything. I switched it on, nothing happened. Maybe the power switch is off at the back. There was a power switch at the back, try that. Clock comes on. That's about all. No motors spinning. Oh look, there's a drum. Right, the capstan motor's not spinning for some reason. That one. But we'll ignore that. What we'll do is put it into pause, if we remember how to. It's a slightly strange pause on this one, isn't it? But we'll wind this thing down to the minimum, put it into pause. Well, it's as much as you could hope for. At least we know that motor's spinning now. So now, if I hit eject, what happens? Nothing. I thought I'd see a bit more action than that. What did we see? Capstan rotating, and I'm fairly sure unlaced. But we didn't see the head drum rotate. The head drum doesn't rotate on either machine during unlace. From which there are two possible explanations. One, I'm barking up the wrong tree and the tape retraction is carried out by some other mechanical mechanism that doesn't involve rotating the head. Unlikely. Or both machines have got the same fault. And when I swapped the motor control board over, it just went across with it. Unlikely. But one of those things is true. Let's think on it again. Well, at the end of the last session, we'd decided that one of two conditions was true. Either both of the logic control panels were faulty and were not driving the motor which can wind the tape back into the cassette during unlace, or I was barking up the wrong tree and unlace is not driven by the motor but is comes from some other mechanism, the drum motor I should say. And eventually I decided to pay for the service manual, which actually ended up costing about £4 something, so I really should have done that earlier. And now I have a service manual, and one of those two conditions was true. I was barking up the wrong tree. Even though during eject, if I rotate the head drum, it does pull the tape back into the cassette. That's not the way the machine does it. Do you remember earlier we saw a pulley there, and I thought, oh, does that hit the edge of the unloading ring and pull the tape back into the cassette that way during unlace? Yes, that's how it's supposed to work. So I now have the relevant part of the diagram. All of this mucking around with the board at the back, I think we can fit that and forget about it. I think that's all working fine. What I need to do is work out why this pulley here is not engaging properly. And reading the instructions in the service manual, which are not brilliant, you need a special tool, which of course I don't have, a special jig, which we don't have. Improper adjustment of the tension lever in the unloading state could damage the tape, yes, or sometimes causes tension lever not to pull out the tape from the cassette in the loading operation. I think I know what they're trying to say, but it's not great. Okay, let's reassemble the back of the machine so that's not all hanging off, and then have a closer look at this and see if I can adjust it. So you'll remember here that I've still left this cosmetic panel off the bottom of that, just to make it a bit easier to access this. And I believe the problem is that this pulley here is not correctly set. So if we look at the instructions, which it says remove the cassette compartment. Well, I did that earlier and I got into terrible kerfuffle with it, so I tried not to do that. Depress eject button, yes, to unload the tape. Install the reference plate, which of course we don't have. Check to ensure, I'm sure that's the wrong kind of ensure, that the gap between the end of the tension lever 2, which tension lever is that, and the cassette reference plate is 1/2 to 1mm. So which is the tension lever of which it speaks? That's the tension lever. There. What's that got to do with it? No. What they're getting at is that that needs to be in the correct position, otherwise it could hit the cassette. Ah, right. That's nothing to do with unlace. Nothing at all. Eject mode. Supply brake is tightly pressed against the wheel table by the spring of the wheel brake. So that means it's locking out the left wheel. Oh. There's something missing off the flowchart for eject, and that is it doesn't tell me anything about wheel drive during eject. They tell you how all the unloading happens and how it stops and all that. It tells you all that sort of thing, but it doesn't tell you what gets the tape back into the cassette. Okay, the instructions say that during eject the capstan motor is spun at high speed, not the drum motor. So I'm fairly sure that is working. Let's just prove that. Let's just prove that during eject that the capstan motor is spinning. I should be able to see that by looking at the capstan itself. Or should I look underneath? Maybe better to look underneath. And we should see that rotate at high speed during eject. Let's just prove that. Right, it's laced up now. So if I press eject, yes, it does. Right. I'm beginning to think that this belt, I couldn't work out where this belt's supposed to be coming from, has a bearing on it. You see, there's a groove down here in the bottom of this pulley, and it doesn't seem to have a belt connected to anything. But I'm beginning to think that is a belt that's supposed to be connected to something for unlace during eject. I need to look very carefully and see if I can work out what could possibly take a belt from that point. It's powered down so I can safely move the board out of the way. It would be really good if the service manual had a plot of where all the drive belts went. That would be really helpful. Well, having studied the service manual, and finally found a photograph, albeit a low resolution one, I think I spotted a mistake. This drive belt here shouldn't be there. It should be on this pulley. And this one doesn't have anything on that pulley at all. How odd that they fitted a pulley on there that you could fit a drive belt onto. Yet apparently no drive belt is installed on there. Well, that's what it looks like on the diagram. So can I move this over to here? I mean, what's the odds of it being the right length? Not very high. It might be close enough for me to just test that I'm right, and I'll change the belt later. It's definitely too short, that belt. Let's find a longer belt for this one to connect from here to this pulley. Well, I have a drive belt. It might be the right length, but it's a bit thin for the job. Let's see if it works for now. Well, even if it doesn't, it'll give me an idea if I've got the right length. Now you need to pull this pulley off to install it. It doesn't go around the bottom. Or can I go over the top? Yes, I can go over the top. Take that off. And go that way around. Right, that belt's too long. It's also too thin, but it gives you an idea of the size you need. This might be the right length, although it's far too thin, but if it proves the point that the machine works, then I can order a belt of the correct size, dimension. Now refit the capstan belt. That belt is way too thin for the job. Way too small for the forces it needs to take. Let's see if fundamentally the machine works now. Right, good enough for now because it's all going to have to come apart again later. Let's see if we can put the machine through its paces now. So power up, make it think there's a tape in there, lace up, play. Working if noisy, stop. Fast forward. Oh, these pop up for some reason. Rewind. Oh, that's unusual. It's got... That's a bit odd. It's turning both. That feels wrong to me. Oh well, let's see what eject does. Yes, that's better. Oh, this is still sticking sometimes. Okay. Play. Why is it locked out? Play is locked out now. What would that be? Everything's locked out. Eject is certainly a lot better. Okay, where do we leave off? Several problems outstanding. Though we've now solved the problem with eject, unlacing the tape okay, I was having intermittent failure of the play button to go down, so it was locking out. It seems to be working now. But that didn't seem to happen when I manually operated the mechanism. It only happened when there was actually real tape in there. So there's one problem. Another one is that sometimes during eject the loading ring is not always working first time. Sometimes you need to give it a bit of a push. I suspect that's a drive belt issue, maybe lubrication. A more serious problem I'm having is the rewind isn't really working, and the rewind spool is driving fine. The other side of this is the play idler, and that's being pushed too far in and is touching the take-up spool during rewind and is driving the spools in opposite directions, so it's not achieving anything. That might be due to an excessively thick drive belt. I don't obviously have the original type of drive belts on here. So, still having a few issues. This drive belt here, which was the one, remember I had a belt going over here instead of down to the flywheel down here. The belt I have in there at the moment is a bit on the thin side, and that needs to be replaced with a thicker one later when I can get one in. But right now, let's see if I can solve this problem of no rewind and also bottom out this problem with play being a little bit intermittent. So my theory is that the drive belt which I've got on this play idler may be too thick and too short, and it's dragging the play idler against the take-up spool even during rewind. If I select rewind, I think we've got it in laced up position at the moment. No, we haven't. It's unlaced. Alright. I'll get that into the laced position. In rewind at the moment, it's working now. How odd. Fast forward. Fast forward's not. Oh, fast forward is working, sort of. Play. We're locked out of play for some reason. And eject is actually working at the moment. Alright, let's pop a tape in and see how many of those functions work. Start with... Oh, I've put the tape in and it's not laced up. So there's a fail. Well, it worked a moment ago. I've no idea why that's not lacing up. I haven't made a mistake, have I? Why is it not lacing up? This feels very wrong. Okay, it'll unlace. That was okay. So it's not lacing, but it will unlace. Where's the sense in that? Okay, I have it fully laced up now. Play is working. Fast forward is trying to work. Rewind. No, we have that problem with the careful here. I have this problem with this, that play idler getting in the way for rewind. If I move it out of the way, then it tries to rewind, and not very successfully. But play is working. Oh no, that's locked out now. I had pretty much the whole machine working earlier except eject, and now I've got pretty much nothing working except eject. Okay, a little bit of progress, and I need to explain how this works. Very strange mechanism here. It uses the record tab detection switch to detect whether there's a cassette in there. Isn't that the weirdest thing? So this is the Beta record tab record tab. You know, on VHS, it's a big thing you peel out of the back. Well, this is a smaller one here on Beta. And the way it works is the switch, the plunger that detects whether that is in position, has got 3 positions. Fully up, which means no cassette is inserted. Part way down, which means a cassette is inserted but it still locks out the record button, or all the way down, in which case a cassette is inserted and the record button is free to move. Now I don't care about the record button, but what happens is when the tape is in, this part here, which presumably has a magnet in it, goes back over this reed switch and opens the reed switch, and therefore it detects that there's a tape loaded, and then we'll start lacing up. But of course that's no longer working. So let's just check that reed switch. Let's see what the continuity is doing on that. I think it's supposed to open when there's cassette inserted, so let's have a look. Get a multimeter on it. Okay, it's a 3-pin connector they've used, but only the top and bottom connections. So I think it'll be closed. Let's check the meter. Yeah. No, not closed. Eject the tape. So this magnet is now not over the reed switch. It seems to be open circuit. It's open circuit. Whether or not this is here. So there's something wrong, possibly broken reed switch. If I manage to break that. Let's see how easy it is to take that off the board. It's not obvious to me actually whether it's supposed to be open or closed. And looking at the service diagram, what does it say? The switch passes a loading voltage. It's supposed to be closed when it's down. I wonder if this bracket's been pushed away. Maybe out of range of the magnet. I'm metering out the wires to the switch. The reed switch, yes. I can see the wires to the reed switch. But it never seems to make. I definitely need to take that off, I think. Right, there's the board with the reed switch. And the screw that holds it in place. Let's take a closer look at this. The glass is a little bit broken at one end, but I don't think that's enough to stop it working. I need a magnet. Okay, I have a spirit level. Oops. I have a spirit level here which has a magnet on it. Let me take a look at the reed switch. It's making a nice ticking noise. But is it actually changing anything? Okay, we're across there. Let's put the magnet on it. No. I can hear it ticking. More powerful magnet maybe? I think that's pretty strong. I'd say that reed switch is not working. And it appears to be a random fail, not really anything to do with anything I've done. Okay, well, I have a scrap machine. I can borrow this assembly from the scrap machine, can't I? I may have just disproved my own theory here because I've just found a much more powerful magnet. And it is working. But it doesn't seem to be working from the actuator that's built into the video recorder. Don't know what the cause of that is. It could be the reed switch has lost sensitivity in some way. It could be that the magnet inside here is weak or has fallen out. And you know, I think it may have fallen out. I don't see a magnet in there. This is plastic. Where's the magnet gone? Well, that's crazy. Let me show you what seems to have happened. Here's the reed switch assembly. This component here to slide across to meet the reed switch, which is normally mounted on this panel on here when the actuator is in. And what should be going on inside here, there should be a magnet, but I don't know if you can see, it appears to be hollow. This plastic component here does not seem to have a magnet. I can put a screwdriver through that. No magnet in there, is there? So presumably it's fallen out somewhere into the deck. I may or may not ever be able to find that. So let's raid that off the other machine. We may have just lost a few minutes of footage, so I'll just tell you what I'm doing. I'm swapping out the entire assembly here, which includes the magnet, and also I'll swap over the entire reed switch, having a spot of bother with some of the screws not wanting to come off. But here's the bracket that did have the reed switch PCB on it. I'll swap over the whole unit, and this here is the magnetic part. It's fiddly to replace. It's got circlips and springs all over the joint, so it's going to be a challenge to swap over. Okay, so this is the one that's lost its magnet. I suspect there's a difference in the design here, you know. Well, maybe something's just fallen off this. Anyhow, let's set about fitting this. It's not easy. Biggest problem, I think, is fitting this spring. Not looking forward to this. Okay, I have the spring fitted at the bottom. Now I need to fit this whole thing onto its shaft, which you probably can't see, but it's there alright. Okay. It has a circlip to go on, but now I also have a spring to fit at the top. Alright, let's do its circlip first so the whole thing doesn't fall off. I may have slightly twisted the circlip because there really wasn't enough room in there to get it out. Oh yes, the circlip's on. Right, one more spring to go into battle with, and possibly a circlip at the other end of it. Let's see how I get on with that. Hoping I can do it without releasing the circlip. When I released this tiny circlip that you can probably not even see on the donor machine, it pinged off into the distance, and I really can't afford that to happen here. Okay, I've released its circlip. I have it here. I can put the spring on the top. Really can't afford to lose that circlip. It's the eject spring. It's fighting this spring. Drop the circlip, but I think I can still see it. Retrieved it. I think we have a circlip in place. Yes, we do. Good. Now we can fit the reed switch assembly, which I've raided off the other machine. Single screw fits it this way, rather than battling your way through the screw that way. Putting it in pretty much the same place as it was on the last machine. You can see from the marks on the screw. Right, I think I should be able to hear the reed switch when I put it in its place. Yes, I can. So if I've done that correctly, I should now be able to switch it on. When I put a tape in, it will lace up. There you go, we've fixed something. Let's stop for a moment. Right, we have a different problem right now. The machine is running, sort of, but I was noticing that during play the picture kept disappearing. And here's a big thing. I put it into freeze frame and you can see multiple lines. If I just run it a little bit, you can see something's wrong here. There are multiple mistracking lines. That means that the tape is out of alignment, quite a long way out of alignment. So the head is scanning across multiple frames. See? 1, 2, 3. You should only ever see one line in a mistracking on pause. Look. Multiple lines. So clearly the tape is not running cleanly through the deck, or it has a massive alignment error. Now, no one's ever messed about with this, I'm sure. There won't be a massive alignment error caused by the guides needing adjusting. You don't go in there and start twiddling when you see a problem like this. I don't know if you can see it, my microphone was in the way. These multiple lines here in freeze frame are telling us something. When you have a problem like this, and it's not just on Beta, I mean this applies to all formats, you should be looking for whether the tape is lying flat throughout the tape path. Because if it's not, if it's riding up or down through its tape path, then you'll get this multiple mistracking error. And looking carefully here, I can see the tape as it's going from the head to this guide here is crinkled. And if I try to push the tape down very carefully, if I try to push the tape down slightly so that it's flatter, the amount of mistracking lines should disappear. Look. Now, fortunately, the machine is using it's got a feature where it's trying to give you perfect freeze frame, so it's nudging the tape forward. But you can see that's much better. So the tape is riding up here. You don't start adjusting guides to try to fix a fault like this. You need to find out why the tape's not flat. Now, it could well be the pinch roller is causing the tape to ride up on the capstan. In fact, I can see exactly that. Let me review. So here's the pinch roller. It started running without my say so. I'll stop it, I think, if I can. Right, so here's the capstan, and the pinch roller is hiding in there. And the tape was riding up or down the pinch roller, hitting the top of the capstan, and causing the tape to be out of true along here where it comes across the audio heads. So I need to sort out that pinch roller. I may see if I can replace it with the one from the other machine, or see if I can clean it up, or see if I have a replacement somewhere else. But the machine's never going to run with a pinch roller in that state. I did mention at the very start that I wasn't impressed with the pinch roller. Right. Another problem I've got, and I may just live with, is that sometimes it locks out of the play mode, but actually you can work around it. So if I eject, you still need to fix that eject, unlace, torque. So it'll probably go into play now, fine. But if I then select fast forward, say, and I still need to work on a fast forward and rewind, very often play locks out. But if I just tap it a few times, it'll very often unjam. So I don't know why. The locking mechanism is activated. There we are, and it works. So probably not worth worrying about that too much. It's playing now, but after a few seconds it goes to heck because the tape will start riding again up the pinch roller. Yes, I can see it's all crinkled in the area of the pinch roller. So let's work on the pinch roller problem. I mean, the pinch roller's a sorry state, it really is. Power the machine down. Let's see if we can get it out easily. That's in the way. It's in just the wrong place for me to get a screwdriver in there. I guess I could manually partly lace it up, just a bit of a push, and that'll give me much better access to the pinch roller here. This is very solidly mounted on the loading ring. On some machines and formats, the pinch roller is mounted on a very bendy, weak plastic or thin metal hanger, and it can be a bit scary that you're going to bend it trying to undo the screw. I find that's especially true on 8mm actually. Still trying to find a screwdriver that actually fits the pinch roller screw. Oh, that's it, perfect. Need to find a perfect fit for this sort of thing. You don't want to apply lots of force. There, perfect. This is very barrel shaped. Let me see if we can set you up so you can see that. So the top edge of that, if we look at it, is not flat at all. That needs replacing. Let's see if I have a replacement of some sort. Okay, here's the one from the other machine. Is it any better? I would say it is better actually. Try not to lose the screw. It's not great, but better. Let me clean that up. I'm going to give it a little go over with some glass paper just to get rid of the rough surface. Right. I would say that's looking reasonably good after being gently glass papered just to get rid of any shininess and grot. Let's fit that to the machine and see if it plays better. Power it up. Just the tracking. I'd say well, that's a lot better, but there's another problem I'm seeing, that the tracking seems to be rolling a bit. If I put it into pause, I mean that's just loads better than it was. But when I get it back into normal speed, it seems to be struggling. It's as though the audio tracking heads might be dirty. The audio control heads, so let's just go over the AC heads, make sure. Yeah, I don't seem to be getting any. I don't think the tracking control is doing what it should be doing at all. Let's just check that. So the audio control head is around the back. So one thing I dislike about Beta compared to VHS, the only thing I dislike about Beta compared to VHS, is the audio control heads are a bit hard to get to on Beta. They vary from one model to another. Yeah, this one's particularly awkward. Let's try that again. What am I doing wrong here? Still struggling. Also, is there good sound? Yes. Sounds fine, but we're not. The tracking's not working very well, so I'd say there's either a problem with the audio control head or some other problem with the servos. Sure, we didn't have that earlier. Yeah. You can see it's trying, because if there's no control signal at all, it would be rolling continuously. So it's wrong, and then it's good, and then it drifts too far again. So that implies that the control pulses may be weak. Actually, probably worth trying another tape before I blame it too much on the machine. Well, we're struggling here. We clearly have no tracking, and I've looked at the output of the control pulse amplifier here, pin 6 of this IC, and I have an oscilloscope connected up there, just slightly out of screenshot. Oh no, you might be able to see it. And there's nothing there. There's no output there. Put that to visible. No, there's no signal, just a DC voltage. So we're not getting any output from the control pulse amplifier. Now, you can't look at the input because that comes directly from the control head, and the signal is much too weak to check with a normal oscilloscope in this way. So we have a problem either with the amplifier on this board, not that likely but possible, or with the cabling to the head or to the head itself, which is definitely clean. So I'm going to have to debug that problem. And we didn't have this problem at the start, but it's happened. So let's try to oh dear, find out where the problem is. I think I'll start by metering out the connections to make sure that I do get connection to the audio control head to the connector over here. Okay, well, metering the connector here to the AC head, the control part of the head, I think I read about 200 ohms, which doesn't sound unreasonable for that head. It's basically an audio head. So what's the possible problems? It could be a problem with the alignment or physical condition of the control head. It isn't a wiring fault, we've proven that. It could be a fault on this board. Now, you remember earlier I did swap this whole board over, so I could swap it over again, I suppose. You may have to do that. I suspect the problem lies in the control head area, but that involves a lot of upsetting of tape path alignment, so I wonder if I should change this board first to eliminate it. I guess that's what I'll do. Interplay. And it's mistracking still. It's exactly what I expected, but it was kind of worth a try. Let's get that out of your way. Yeah, so you can see it's mistracking still. So I didn't expect the problem to lie on that board, but had to try. So it's most likely in the head assembly itself. Well, having eliminated an electronic fault with this problem with no tracking pulses, and I metered that the head is about 200 ohms, and I checked it on the scrap machine as well, that's about 200 ohms. You started to look at a problem with the alignment of the control block, so the audio control block there. So what I think I'll do is I'll take a close look with a mirror when it's running and make sure that the tape is actually passing over the bottom of the head, which is where the control pulses are on Beta and indeed on VHS. So let's power it up again. And I think I'll just power down at this point and just... Oh no, I'll run it for a few seconds and then power down. Right, now let's have a look. So it's powered safely down. It doesn't matter if I touch anything with this mirror. Let's move this bit of tape out of the way and see if I can see the tape as it goes over the heads. The audio control head. Well, it looks fine, but of course I've disturbed the tape path by putting the mirror in here. But it seems to be travelling properly over the audio head, the control head. What I might do is get a clean cotton bud and see if I can push the tape down onto the control part of the head, and if I can, that implies there's a tape path error. So let's give that a whirl. Okay, so it's playing, but we're struggling for control pulses. Let's give the tape a little bit of a nudge down to the bottom and let's see if it tightens it up. Did it? I don't want to start diving in and twiddling all these adjusters on the audio control head without very good reason. But I may have to, because what could be the problem? I don't think the tape path is wrong, but I'm really short of ideas. This all worked fine earlier on. Right, I'm going to try something silly. We don't know when these problems started, but it might be when I had to change that manky old pinch roller that was causing so many problems. On occasion, I've had tape path errors caused by pinch roller trouble, and the problem has been sorted by flipping the pinch roller upside down. No, nothing to do with it, but it was good to eliminate it. That's interesting. I found that the post that the pinch roller is on is very, very stiff. That needs some lubrication, urgently. I don't normally use WD-40 much on a video recorder, but I am for this particular component, because it needs to penetrate into that shaft. I've got WD-40 on the pinch roller, that'll certainly need some cleaning off. Right, we've fixed that problem. It may have no bearing on the fault we're having, but it needed fixing. Right, now I've got some IPA to clean off any WD-40. I've hardly ever used WD-40 on video recorders, but this particular case, it seemed the right thing to do. I don't think that's made any difference, but it needed doing. Tried a bit of fast forward, but no, that's not working still. And then we've got the old play lockout after fast forward, which is another fault I need to fix. No, we're still not tracking. Not getting much further forward, are we? Let's stop for a moment. Okay, after a certain amount more fiddling about actually with the alignment of the AC head lock, I think I have something which we could call a working machine. It's stable. So playback is now good. I'll possibly play with that some more another time. It may be that the audio control head is a little bit worn, though it doesn't look worn, but it may not be working as well as it should. But it's certainly playing at the moment, and if we hit stop and eject is now working properly as well. So all we really need to sort out is rewind and fast forward, and I think we can call that a working machine. Right, rewind and fast forward then. Right, so what I'm going to do, I've already worked out that the idler on the top, which is responsible for rewind and fast forward, doesn't have much torque on it. Fast forward is easier to debug than rewind because it's simpler. So I'm going to make it lace up without a tape, which involves pushing the two buttons down as we put the carriage down, and then select fast forward and see if I can work out why the fast forward idler, which I think is on the other side of this, doesn't have much torque. Add it out. Tell it that it's got a tape in it, even though it hasn't. It's laced up. Select fast forward. So it's working, but it's too easy to stop with my fingers. And if I stop it, there we go, this stops. Because this belt's too thin, that's all there is to it. So we need a better belt. Alright, well, let's see if we can find something. So this belt is the right size, but it's only a, whatever that is, 1.5mm or something thickness. So I've fitted a belt here which is the right thickness, is a bit too taut for my liking. We'll get a longer one later, but that'll do for now. Let's see if I have good fast forward torque now. Select fast forward. Yeah, loads. I can't stop it with my finger. So we'll actually fit a real tape in there and see if I can fast forward. Oh yes, that's fast forwarding nicely, as you can see, because these are all turning. I suspect I still won't have good rewind, but let's try it. Oh, that sounded very unhappy. Rewind is a problem, and I believe it's because the play idler is engaging when it shouldn't be. So let's push that out the way and now select rewind. Rewinding nicely. Well, has to be said. These early Beta machines that were fully laced up all the time never re-ran that well. So why is that one in the wrong place? It might be that the drive belt I've fitted there is too thick. So let's see if I've got a thinner drive belt. It may be that this isn't being allowed to pull back properly. Give that a whirl. We'll have to take off this belt I've just fitted, unfortunately, which, like I said, is too tight, and find a slightly thinner belt for that one, I think. Okay, so I now have thick belt there, thin belt on the play pulley, because I think that was in operation during rewind when it's not supposed to be. Let's power it up, see if we've got fast forward. Lovely fast forward. Well, adequate fast forward. Rewind. Still no rewind. Oh. Is the rewind due to this play idler being in the way? Select rewind now. Well, it's sort of trying to rewind, but it's not very good. But if I let the play idler rest against the take-up spool, then it stops it. So I think the idler tyre is the reason that we've got poor rewind, and this is another problem. Why is that being allowed to touch the take-up spool during rewind? It shouldn't happen. Okay, back to the top of the deck. I'll reassemble the bottom, switch it off. Right, just to show you those functions again. So have it powered up. Fast forward is working, shall we say? Play has a habit of locking out, but eventually you can convince it. There we go. And that will play. We've proven that already. But rewind is non-mitigated because the play idler is resting on the take-up spool during rewind, which is a fault. But also I think I'm going to have a look at the idler tyre here. Now you may remember earlier I inverted that, which is a bodge anyway, but it was just to get us going. I think I can, if I put it into fast forward and stall it, aha, the tyre is turning but the spool is not now. So that is because it's worn. So we'll definitely see if we can replace that idler tyre now. You know, a brand new replacement would be nice, but try and get in parts for this machine. Now I could take the circlip off and remove the whole. I might do that. Remove the whole pulley, or I could just try and pull the tyre off. Let's see if I can take the circlip off without stabbing my finger or catapulting it across the room. No, maybe not. Maybe I'll just pull the tyre off. And that's when I'd inverted it. I think the original way around was that. No, that's the inverted way. That's the original way. But it's just worn. So let's see if I can find something a little better for that. This is an idler for a Ferguson video recorder. Just might be the same size. It really looks like that might be the right size. just a tiny hint bigger. You know, that really might fit. Give it a whirl, shall we? Right. Try that. See if fast forward has more torque. Well, what I'll do before I put tape in is I'll try stalling, put it into fast forward and try stalling it with my finger. Oh, it's still very low torque. Oh, that's disappointing. I thought they'd be a lot better. It might be that it's slipping a bit on the take-up spool, and I may need to clean that a bit, or roughen it slightly. Let's see how it works with the tape in it. Yeah. Maybe even worse than that one. Try rewind. Well, there's a hint of rewind. Let's try cleaning that. Power down. Wow, should I even roughen the surface maybe? Let's take this spool off, since it seems to come off very easily. So this is the surface here that the idler runs on, and maybe that could use just a tiny touch up with some sandpaper to give it a little bit more bite. Hopefully I can get that drive belt back on. It's for the tape counter. Yeah, that feels definitely better. Put into fast forward. I'd say a bit. Yeah, a bit. Let's see how it goes with fast forwarding the tape. Adequate. Yeah, it's adequate. It's not great, but it's adequate. For these fully laced up machines, you don't get great fast forward and rewind speed. But rewind is poor. So let's follow there's an extra idler involved in rewind. What we'll do is go through that process again. We'll get it laced up with no tape in there. In rewind, the fast forward idler engages with this second idler, then does rewind. It's not latching down for some reason, but that's okay. I won't worry about that. And if I stall that, it seems to be the same. If I stall that one, both of these idlers are running, but that spool is not. So maybe I need to roughen up the surface on that one. However, I have to do it in situ because I don't want to mess up the back tension band which is on that spool, as is the case with most video recorders. So I'm going to have to just do that in situ. That should be a laugh. So if I just put the glass paper on the bottom of the spool during the rewind operation and see if that works. Oh, got my glass paper stuck in there. Spool. It's hardly turning up enough torque to do anything. Just need to jam the fast forward button down to get the brakes off, so I can get in there. I would say that's working. Clean it. Ideally I'd like to change this tyre, but I can't. So let's see if that's any better. Fast forward. Adequate. Rewind. Aha. Adequate. Play. Once I overcome that lockout problem. I've disconnected the cables. Let's just fix that. We're having a bit of a tracking wander again, as we did earlier. Pity. So I still need to do a little bit of work trying to sort out the control pulse issue, and maybe I need to swap the whole audio control head assembly over from the other machine. But the fact I can now operate everything so we have the problem with the intermittent lockout of play, which you just need to jiggle and wiggle and then it works, and the problem with the tracking issue. This is not a nice tape to be using, unfortunately. It's just the first pre-recorded tape that came to hand. Alright, not bad, is it? We're getting there. If I can just sort out those last couple of problems, then we're there. Well, I've done that, and maybe I've fixed the problem with intermittent play lockout. It's just a lubrication issue on that bar, I hope. Let's confirm it. So go play. What was happening is, if I'd selected fast forward, it would then lock out play. Or rewind. Perfect. That's 100% reliable. Now, a channel I particularly enjoy is called Curious Mark, and he's done a lot of work repairing teletype units full of levers and mechanical bits like this, and they need lubricating a lot and cause all this sort of problem. So I'm really pleased now. We've just got that problem with the control pulses to fix. Apart from that, the machine is more or less there now, making progress. So what do I do from this point? I suspect a problem in the audio control head, but it's non-trivial to change. I've taken the one out of the scrap machine, which was hard. You have to cut the wires because they snake through in such a protracted way you can't pull the connectors through anyway. I was able to get some of the connector off on that one, which is the control head. So that's the control head, that's audio, and that's arrays. I know I won't need that, but I'll connected up anyway. So what I'm going to have to do is undo these nuts here and withdraw it up, having released a lot of this cabling underneath, and feed the cabling up from the underside of the deck. And this goes off to the control servo, the servo and logic board, which we've taken off several times. So it's a huge amount of work on a hunch, but I've really got nothing else to go on. I'm going to have to do this. I don't want to do this. Right, let's begin. And one of the things is, in taking these nuts off, you lose the height alignment of the whole head assembly. Now, I've been twiddling a bit with some of these others in desperation, but I know they're roughly right. But I can't do anything to guarantee the same height. I'm just going to have to play it by ear a bit, see how far these nuts, these strange slotted nuts, go down, and try to put this to the same height, and then adjust them to get good picture, because this is the thing about Beta, unfortunately. The positioning of the audio and control head affects the alignment of the video tracking. It's on VHS it's fairly independent, but because of the placement of the head block, it's critical. So you get that wrong and then finish up with terrible mistracking lines everywhere. But there's nothing I can do. There's no ways I can retain that height adjustment precisely. I'm going to have to just mess it up and then get it correct later. So I've fed some of the cables through underneath, which involved removing 2 circuit boards and dozens of cable ties, and all I've got is a few centimetres of slack. But hopefully that's enough. Now I have to undo these 2 nuts here. Now hopefully I can lift the whole of the block off. This contains the audio and control head plus the full width arrays head. What can you say? Access could have been better. The cables are starting to get tight, so I need to try to push them through from the other side. I might have circuit boards off all over the place. Including this one. So these are the ones I need to push through whilst trying to withdraw the block at the other side. Should push this cable through, it's just too hard. So I have to resolder all 6 wires. And even then, access is very limited. And what's annoying, I suppose, is not just that it has poor access, but it has unnecessarily poor access. That they didn't need to design it this way. And I've noticed that a few times with this machine, that it really didn't need to be as hard to work on as it is. We have just about sufficient access on the back of this head. I don't know if you can see it there. Just about sufficient access that I can swap over to this block. Bit of soldering, maybe heat shrinking, and then reassemble it and try to get it roughly lined up and see if it works any better. I've also got a lot of assembly to do at the back as well. So there's loads to do. I'll get on with that. See you shortly. Right, I have soldered on all the wiring. I'll have to pull the wiring through as I push it down as well. Let's do that. Let's pull the wiring through at the same time as mounting the AC head. Okay, well, it went on a good deal easier than it came off. Now it's sitting there on the springs. So we refit these strange slotted nuts. So when I first attempt to play a tape on it, I'm fully expecting huge mistracking because these nuts won't be in exactly the right place. They feel roughly right. Now I've got some reassembling to do back here. So get these cables tidied up so they don't touch any of the spinning components. Refit this board I had to take off, put that board back. Reconnect my blue wire, which I pulled out but probably didn't need to. That's the one for the AC head. Sorry, the control head. Let's plug that one back in. Right, reassembly. Okay, we're about to try. I'm really quite scared about this. This new block mounted in here. We don't know what it's going to do. It could give huge tracking errors. It could still have the rolling problem. It could work. Oh, let's have a look. We could have new faults. All kinds of horrible outcomes. Press play, see what we get. When we have a picture, let's try the tracking control, move tracking to one end. Right, that's to the other. I would say it's exactly the same. It's still slowly mistracking after all that work. Well, I suppose at least it's no worse. Oh, that's very disappointing, isn't it? But it eliminates that side of things. And while I was fishing around underneath, I started to develop a theory about what else it might be. So let me try something else. Okay, what's my thought on this? Well, we've pretty much eliminated the audio control block here because we've replaced it. We've pretty much eliminated the servo, capstan servo anyway, and logic board there because we've replaced that too. So what's wrong? Well, remember I did put the oscilloscope on one of the connections on the output from the head here, and I didn't get a signal, but maybe I was just barking up the wrong tree there. The service manual doesn't show what kind of signal you should get at that point, so that may have been a red herring. It may be there's nothing wrong with the servo system at all. I noticed something when I was changing over that audio control block, which was a horrible job. And let me see if I can demonstrate what that problem is. So we'll open this again. Oops. When I was making sure that these cables, because they had originally quite a complicated dressing arrangement of lots of cable ties and loops and all sorts of horrible things. When I was making sure that none of the cables touched any of the motors, I just span the motors by hand, and that's the drum motor. This is the capstan motor. This is the capstan motor, and this is capstan. And I noticed, oh look, can you see that I'm turning this, but that's not really keeping up. So what might be happening is this belt's too short, too long rather, and the capstan motor is doing its best to control the correct speed, but the belt is slipping and it's not keeping up. Okay, so that should be a fairly easy thing to... It's easy to change if I can find another belt of a better size. So we think this one may be just a tiny bit slack for the job. Lovely easy belt to take off. So let's see if we can find a flat belt a little bit shorter than that. Oh, it's not going to be easy, is it? Right, so this is a belt I've taken off. I thought I'd fitted a new belt here, but now I'm looking at it. That doesn't look new. Did I not change that one? Well, I found this in my belt collection, and it's very, very similar, but a little bit more twang. We like that. Let's fit that one. Well, that's not slipping now. Barely, anyway. You really have to push it around to slip that. Right. If that fixes it, then I've done an awful lot of work that I didn't need to do for the sake of a sloppy drive belt. If it doesn't fix it, then we have to think some more. And press play. Adjust the tracking. The tracking seems to be working. If I push it to one end, it goes out of alignment and stays out of alignment. That looks good. We're winning. Turn the volume down. We're winning. So, where are we? I do feel a bit silly having done so much work for the sake of a drive belt, but it explains why it worked earlier. It's a bit of luck, because of course with a slipping drive belt sometimes it slips, sometimes it doesn't. Let's look at the tracking. So I send the tracking to one end and back to the other end. Looks pretty good. And I'd done a little bit of work off camera on the fast forward and rewind, so there's fast forward. I mean, that's as good as you'd hope for a fully laced type Beta machine. And rewind, which always seems to be the hardest thing for this type of machine. A little bit of a noise, but no complaints about the speed. And we'll test the auto stop while we're there. Auto stop's good too. So we seem to have got to the situation where we have a fully working machine. I can't find any faults with it now. Well, maybe the slow-mo thing could be a bit better. Well, the variable speed works okay, but the freeze frame seems to roll on. It's trying to move the noise bars out and it's not succeeding very well. So, minor problem with that. I'm not even sure it is a fault. It could vary on the particular recording you have. I'm not going to worry about that. And eject now works properly as well. At last. We've fixed it. I've just got to assemble it now. Well, I was just about to refit this component, which is pretty much a cosmetic panel that sits underneath the cassette carriage. I notice it's a bit rusty, not the best, so I raided the one out of the other machine, which is in better condition, so we'll fit that. It's only held on with one screw. I can't get the screwdriver in there to do up the screw. None of my screwdrivers will really fit in there. It's very awkward. So I'm going to work around it. Put in a small bit and then rotate it with pliers. It's the only way I can do it. Obviously all they needed to do was put a screw hole in this so you could close it and do it up, but Toshiba didn't think of that. Am I complaining about the serviceability of this Toshiba again? Now for the top lid, it's been so long since that's been on there, I don't even know where it is. And the cover for there, and the bottom as well. Oh, lovely wood effect. Yeah, let's clean it while we can get to it. Obviously the tuner panel's irrelevant because analog transmissions were shut down in the UK many years ago. Well, we have it fully working now and fully assembled. The only couple of things I still want to do, there's a little bit of a damaged clip down here that I'm going to glue, and there was also one drive belt which is a bit too tight, so I'm going to buy a new drive belt for that. But we can see that the machine is fully working, so that's play, fast forward, rewind, not going to worry about record at this point, and eject. All working lovely. It came out a treat in the end, but boy, it was hard work getting there, partly because I created my own problems. Look, a little detail I want to show you here. Oh, comes complete with a dead bug. Why did they have a removable cover over the top of the head? It's a mystery. And showing that same piece of plastic work here, we have the date code, I think, somewhere in these plastic mouldings. And it, if I can find it, it's this one, I believe. Let's get a magnifier on that. It says, no, not that one, that says BB, so that's some other thing. Here we are. This is the date code here. I don't know if you can see that. Possibly not. It reads 807. So this was made in 1980. Which, at least the plastic moulding was. The actual machine might have been just a tiny bit later, but it's an order of things, approximately a 1980 machine. You have to admit, that's a pretty smart machine, isn't it? I mean, it's huge and heavy, but it has a certain style, doesn't it? And I reckon this is going to be pretty rare. Working examples of this machine can't be many. I believe there's one in the museum somewhere, but really, that's a very rare thing. Now I'm going to reassemble all the spare bits, or partly reassemble the spare bits into the scrap machine, so at least all those parts are in one place. I'm very pleased with that. I hope you've enjoyed watching us work our way through this, but there's something else I need to show you yet, so just a moment. Right, so before we say goodbye to Tosh, the Beta video recorder, and I think you'll be seeing some more of that video recorder later, I want to show you what I'll be coming up with shortly. This may be my next video, or it might be the one after that. But here's the thing. I'm going to tell you what brand name this is, and I'm going to show you the box it came in. This is something sent to me as a freebie. It's a big and heavy box, and the contents are branded Scantic. So what do you think it could be? Not a lot of video recorders were branded Scantic. So comments below, please. What do you think's in this box, and why would I bother fixing it? In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed this video, working my way through that Toshiba Beta video recorder. It took forever, but I think it was worth it in the end. Please do remember to like, share, and especially subscribe, and I'll do more content on audio and video technology in the future. Bye for now.